Those of us from the, quote, greatest generation have a hard time keeping track of all the medications that are given to young people today. We've just heard of the dangers of Ritalin, and it's just being overprescribed in a shocking way. But there's a new one you may have or not heard called Adderall. It's one of the prescription drugs used to treat what they call attention deficit disorder. And 14 million young people in America between the ages of 20 and 40 take it. And many people think it's harmless. That isn't always the case. Our Laurie Johnson tells us about one young man who was addicted to Adderall, and it cost him his life.
Since childhood, Richard Fee lived a storybook life. Straight A's, star athlete, lots of friends. Then he started taking the prescription drug Adderall.
It just changed his whole thought process.
Over the course of 3 years, Richard's life spiraled out of control until his father found him hanging in his closet.
Worst possible thing you could even imagine. I mean, here was this great kid that had everything going for him. Everything. Smart, good-looking kid, and the Adderall just destroyed him.
Adderall is prescribed for people with attention deficit disorder, or ADD. Adderall works on the brain to help them focus better. But some people who do not have ADD believe Adderall makes them focus better too, so they take it to help them study.
Richard had mentioned to me that he had gotten an Adderall from one of his friends at exam time.
He's not alone. An estimated 1 in 5 college students use it, largely unaware of the physical danger and that it's a felony to use someone else's prescription.
You hear in the library during exam week people asking each other, or I really need an Adderall pill. People do offer it to each other. It's not a big deal to people on campus.
Soon, Richard wanted his own supply.
If you go to a doctor and you just tell them you have the signs of ADD, that without any checking, they'll just give you a prescription. And that's basically what he did.
Dr. Gretchen Lefevre-Watson, a clinical psychologist, researches the misuse of drugs like Adderall. She says it's easy to fake ADD.
If you talk to most college students, they could probably tell you a doctor or 2 or 3 in town to go to, and what to say and do in order to get a prescription.
Adderall is a Class II narcotic, an amphetamine similar to cocaine. It can be very addictive.
You can get a euphoric feeling with a crash afterwards.
After college, Richard moved back home with his parents and convinced 2 separate doctors to each prescribe him Adderall.
Yeah, Richard would be up for days, be up for 3 days in a row. Walk in the house 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, wide awake. And then he would crash for a couple days and sleep for a couple days.
The Fees tried to get Richard's doctors to stop prescribing the drug.
I said, you keep giving Adderall to my son, you're going to kill him.
But Richard was over 18, and his doctors said legally Richard's treatment was private.
Was actually stayed in the reception area behind the little class partition and said he couldn't talk to us.
Richard's doctors both increased his dose.
You can become more seriously addicted and become psychotic and lose the ability to think clearly and do things that you otherwise wouldn't do.
I'd seen him, he was on the computer, and he had just put little pieces of Scotch tape on his fingers because he didn't want the keyboard to be able to get his fingerprints. Why, I don't know. He covered up the camera on it because he felt like people could be watching him.
During this time, Richard's becoming more violent. He's making threats. I mean, we were scared of our own son during that time. We slept with our doors locked.
Not long after that, Richard took his life.
This should have never, ever happened. And it was Adderall.
People familiar with Richard's story say it illustrates the need for stricter guidelines for diagnosing ADD. and for trying non-pharmaceutical treatments before prescribing Adderall.
There is now clear evidence that the medication should be, in most instances, the last line of defense and not the first line of defense. And what the research is clearly showing is that over the long term, the drugs are not as effective as the behavioral interventions.
The fees want changes, requiring doctors to see what other prescriptions their patients are taking and requiring them to notify parents of adult children who are in danger.
And there was information that they had in their file that if they had shared with us at that time, we'd like to think things would have been different. I mean, they noted in Richard's file that they thought he was suicidal.
They say addicts should find a qualified professional to help wean them off it.
You just don't cold turkey the stuff. You need to be taken off of it slowly.
Although the fees can't get their son back, they hope telling his story will prevent others from losing their loved ones. Lori Johnson, CBN News.